What happens when a black man shows kindness in public, only to be told to go back to Africa? The words were meant to humiliate him, but what followed flipped the entire community on its head. You won't believe what she did next, and who ended up changing. Let me tell you something right now. This wasn't how I pictured my Thursday afternoon going. The sun was doing what it does best in July, frying everything in sight, including the bald spot I was trying to pretend didn't exist. I had my little corner set up, just outside Roosevelt Park, under a battered red and white umbrella that had been through more storms than most politicians. My ice cream truck was parked in its usual spot, humming like an old jazz record player, reliable, a little dusty, but soulful as ever. Kids were running around chasing bubbles, their parents half watching while scrolling through their phones like they were solving world peace. Meanwhile, I was doing what I do every summer, handing out cones and smiles, one scoop at a time. And I love it. Not for the money, though rent ain't gonna pay itself, but for the little moments. Like when a toddler lights up over rainbow sprinkles, or when an old man asks for 2 scoops and then winks, like we're both in on some great cosmic secret. So, when I saw this older lady, white, gray hair in one of those fancy knots like she just stepped out of a perfume commercial, stumble on a sidewalk crack, and drop her whole purse, my body moved before my brain did. I was halfway through handing a kid his vanilla cone with M and Ms. I apologized to the mom, jogged over, helped the woman up, gathered her things, and even offered her a bottle of cold water from my cooler. Her hand trembled a little as she took it, but she gave me a grateful nod. She didn't say much, but you could see it in her eyes. She didn't expect kindness today, especially not from me. I was just about to turn back to my truck when I heard it. You people always trying to act nice. You should just go back to Africa. The voice came from behind her, sharp, clear, and soaked in that syrupy kind of disdain that doesn't yell. It slices. You know what I mean? I turned. There she was, standing no more than 10 feet from me, wearing pressed khaki pants and a floral blouse like she was headed to a church picnic she didn't want to be at. About 45, white, and carrying herself like the world owed her a thank you note just for showing up. Her daughter, maybe 16, was beside her, looking like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Now, for a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard. Maybe the sun got to me. Maybe she said something else like, go back and freeze the batter, or some other nonsense that at least made culinary sense. But no, she said it again, louder. Go back to Africa right there, out loud, in public, like she was placing an order at Starbucks. I felt the heat rise in my neck, not from the sun, but from the slow, boiling rage that starts low and climbs, one vertebra at a time. But here's the thing. I didn't react. Not the way she wanted. Not the way the movies say you should. I just looked at her. Long and steady. Not angry. Not scared. Just disappointed. Like watching someone proudly announce they never learned how to read, and thinking, that's sad. Really. Then I turned around, walked back to the truck, and picked up right where I left off. Because I'll be damned if I let ignorance dictate the playlist of my life. The other folks in line? Oh, they heard it. Trust me. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared at her like she just burped during a prayer. But no one said anything. Not yet. And me? I put a little extra whipped cream on the next cone and handed it to a young black boy with dreadlocks and a smile wider than Michigan Avenue. I didn't say a word, because sometimes silence is louder than a shout, and twice as powerful. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this turns. Stay tuned. Chapter 2 is where things heat up. For real. You ever had your phone blow up so bad you thought the government finally came looking for you? That was me at 6:42 the next morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing yesterday's t-shirt with a strawberry swirl stain right on the belly, halfway through my first cup of gas station coffee and a slice of dry toast that tasted like lost hope. I cracked open my phone just to check the weather and saw 147 unread notifications. That's not a typo. 1, 4, 7. At first, I thought maybe the Cubs finally made it to the World Series again, and folks were losing their minds. But no. Turns out, I was the main event. Someone recorded what happened. Yeah, that little sidewalk circus with Miss Go Back to Africa. It was all caught on camera by a teenager with faster reflexes than a courtroom stenographer. And baby, that clip was everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even one of those family group chats where all the messages are in all caps and nothing makes sense. There I was, holding a bottle of water out to an old lady like a gentleman, only to get sprayed in the face with a century's worth of colonial arrogance. Her voice? Crystal clear. Her face? Full HD. My silence? Louder than a church organ. I scrolled through the comments, and it was like watching a digital stampede. People from New York to Nebraska were chiming in. This man's dignity is unmatched. That woman should be ashamed. My granddad would have knocked her into next week. Some folks were calling me a hero. A few said I should run for city council. One guy even offered to send me a new umbrella for my cart. Bless his heart. But the real kicker? The video went viral overnight, like wildfire on dry grass. By the time I got down to Roosevelt Park to open up the ice cream truck, there was already a line, and not just 2 or 3 kids begging for sprinkles. I'm talking about a line, like barbecue on Sunday after church long. Folks were clapping when I pulled up. One woman yelled, "We love you, ice cream man!" Like I was the soul food version of Spider-Man. And listen, I'm not the emotional type, but something about seeing all those faces, especially the black elders nodding like, "We see you, brother," hit me in a place I usually keep locked up behind rent payments and weather complaints. But here's where it gets messy. See, while I was getting love and high fives, she was getting roasted online like Sunday brisket. Folks found her Facebook, her Instagram, even her old Pinterest boards. Someone dug up her job. Apparently, she worked in real estate, or used to. Let's just say her photo ain't on the company website anymore. And let me be clear, I didn't post that video. I didn't tag her. I didn't put her name in anybody's mouth. But the internet? It's a nosy neighbor with a telescope and a grudge. Once they see injustice, they follow the scent like hounds. Meanwhile, she disappeared. For days, not a peep. No post, no statement, no apology. Just silence. Which was ironic, considering how loud she'd been the day before. But even with all that going on, something didn't sit right with me. I kept wondering, how many times had stuff like this happened to folks without an audience? Without a video? Without a line of people ready to clap for the ice cream guy just for doing the right thing? And, yeah, I was starting to feel the weight. The weight of being a symbol. The face of something bigger. But nobody tells you how heavy that crown is until it's already sitting on your head. And I never asked for it. All I did was hand a woman a bottle of water and mind my business. Still, when people started coming up to me saying, Thank you for handling it with grace. I smiled and nodded. But inside, part of me was tired, real tired. Because for every camera that caught this moment, I could name 10 more where no one was looking. And that, right there, that's the part folks forget. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for, it's right here. Stick around to see how I finally stood my ground and made the whole city watch. Chapter 3 is where truth walks into the room, and it ain't wearing a polite smile. I always knew people could surprise you, but I never expected her to walk up to my ice cream truck with a box in her hands and a different look in her eyes. It was exactly 1 week later, another hot afternoon, the kind where the pavement tries to cook the soles off your shoes and the air tastes like car exhaust and melted popsicles. The summer festival was in full swing. Tents, kids, music, that one guy selling lemonade out of a cooler that probably used to hold fish. You know the scene. They'd asked me to be there. The organizers said they wanted to honor me for the way I handled that moment. Said the community was watching. Said my story meant something. I wasn't in the mood for speeches. I was there to scoop Rocky Road and try to get through the day without having to explain myself to another reporter, fishing for a quote that'd look good on a tweet. But then I saw her. Came out of the crowd like a ghost with a purpose. Carla Walker. Yes, I learned her name. The internet did what it does. But standing there now, she didn't look like the woman from the video. Not quite. No more pressed outfit. No more polished posture. Her hair was tied back like she hadn't slept. No sunglasses. No armor. Just her. That box, and something raw on her face I hadn't seen before. Humility. She stepped forward, real slow, like the sidewalk was judging every move she made. I looked at her. I didn't say a word. The people in line went quiet. You could hear the local band halfway across the park still playing Ain't No Mountain High Enough, like this wasn't turning into something real. She cleared her throat. I brought something, she said, almost whispering. I looked at the box. She opened it up. It was a single pint of homemade ice cream, slightly melted, with a handwritten label taped to the top. Peace offering, caramel and grace. I blinked. My son helped me make it, she said, eyes locked on the container like it could shield her from the weight of what she came here to do. He saw the video. He told me, if I couldn't apologize like a human being, then maybe I should just stop pretending to be one. Now I'm not the type to perform forgiveness on command. This wasn't a Hallmark moment. There were no violins, no camera crews. Just me, her, the box, and a crowd holding its breath, like the world tilted on its axis. I said what I said, she continued, her voice cracking. It was ugly. I was ugly. But I needed to face you, because hiding doesn't clean it up, and you didn't deserve that. I could feel every set of eyes on my back, but I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about how many people never get this moment. How many of our brothers and sisters carry the sting of a stranger's words forever, without ever hearing so much as, my bad. I took the box, looked her dead in the eye, and I said, I appreciate the gesture, I do, but it's not about ice cream. It's about the people who look like me being seen as human before we gotta bleed kindness just to get respect. She nodded. Not defensive, not performative. Just nodded. Like she knew. Then I turned to the crowd and said something I hadn't planned. Something that came straight out of the soul. Let this be a reminder. What happened that day wasn't unusual. It was seen. That's the only difference. Don't clap for me. Clap for every person who walks with dignity in a world that tries to strip it off them daily. And they did. Not the loud, explosive kind of clapping you hear in movies. It was soft, respectful, heavy, like they were clapping for all the moments they remembered being small, just to stay safe. Carla left quietly, didn't ask for applause, didn't post about it, just walked back into the crowd. And me? I got back behind my cart, pulled the lever, and served up 2 cones with that caramel and grace flavor. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't about the taste. Final note. Sometimes change doesn't come marching in with a bullhorn. Sometimes it shows up in quiet confessions and melted ice cream. And if that's how healing starts, well, that's something I can serve every day.